Right. Okay. Cool.
Years ago, my uncle owned a funeral home, and I got a summer job.
On the funeral home? So you dealing with dead motherfuckers all day? Hell no.
Working part-time in the crematorium. It wasn't a lot of fun, but it certainly paid well. And being a poor student, I definitely needed the money. Dealing with dead bodies was very creepy at first, but after a few days, you kind of get used to it.
Oh no.
Kind of. So one morning, I was sweeping the floor of the crematorium when a black hearse pulled up in the parking lot outside.
A what?
A man in a black suit stepped out. My uncle went over to talk to him. After a while, he called me over and told me to help him carry the coffin into the crematorium. I thought it was strange because usually they brought the coffins into the funeral home next door first, but I didn't ask questions. We set the coffin down on the ground, and my uncle went over to prepare the oven for cremation. For a few minutes, I was left alone with the man in the black suit.
Okay.
There was an awkward silence. I didn't know what to say. I assumed that it was the relative who had just died who was lying in the coffin, but he didn't seem at all upset. When the oven was ready, my uncle and I picked up the coffin and brought it over to the middle bench. We took off the top of the casket. I saw the corpse inside was a man who looked to be about 30 years old. Usually, the dead bodies were very pale, but this one looked pink in the face. My uncle stoked the fire, then pressed a button to start the conveyor belt. The coffin was moved slowly into the oven, and it was all the way inside. My uncle closed the door, and I just stood around, waiting. It usually took an hour before everything was burnt and reduced to ashes. After that, I would have to collect the ashes and put them in an urn, so they could be given to the family. My uncle and the man in the black suit went into the funeral home next door. I assumed they were filling out the usual paperwork, so I was left alone in the crematorium to continue sweeping up. After about 10 minutes, I heard a strange noise coming from the oven. It was like a faint knocking sound.
Oh no!
At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then it grew into a loud banging. I tried to tell myself that it was just the metal warping from the heat. It was the unmistakable sound of someone frantically banging on something.
That sucks. That sucks. And the fact that that sucks. I'm so, god damn it. God damn. You see, with that shit, I would have said to the dude, like with the black suit on, I would have said, hey, this motherfucker dead? Like, for real, for real? Like he dead? You sure? Yeah. So if I tickle his feet, he not gonna move. Ah, he moved. What?
Desperately trying to get out. A chill went down my spine and the brush fell from my hands. I was sure the man inside was still alive. Terrified, I ran into the funeral home and shaking uncontrollably, I told my uncle what I had heard. Leading them back to the crematorium, I told them to listen. I don't hear anything, said my uncle.
What?
Me neither, said the man in the black suit. I looked at them, shocked and stunned.
Not his uncle and the man in the black. Not they in cahoots. Not it's an inside job. Hell no.
I even began to doubt my own sanity. My uncle and the man in the black suit shrugged their shoulders and went back to the funeral home. I just stood in the middle of the crematorium, listening intently, collected the ashes from the tray underneath and poured them into an urn.
Oh my God.
The man took it and, with a broad smile on his face, He got back into his car and drove away. I have nightmares about that hideous banging sound I heard coming from inside the oven.
After everything was said and done and we went home, or we clocked out and ready to go home, I would have just looked at my uncle. You really didn't hear nothing at all? Like what? Come on, yo. And this is some strong ass, nasty ass tea. It works wonders, but Jesus, it's nasty.
This is something that happened to me and I still can't explain it. I lived in Japan for 2 years, way out on the island of Kyushu, in a really rural town. I was teaching English there and I lived in an apartment complex with 9 other English teachers and a handful of Japanese families. All of our apartments were 2-story townhouse style. My apartment was the newest of the bunch. Before me, there had been another English teacher who had lived there for 2 years. But before her, as far as I had been told, the apartment had been empty. I first moved in the beginning of August, which is brutally hot and humid in Japan. It's so humid that the wallpaper in your apartment gets wet and then it starts to curl up.
Oh no.
The only air conditioning in the apartment was downstairs and the bedrooms were upstairs. It was truly unpleasant and I ended up having to sleep downstairs to avoid the sweltering heat in my bedroom. And this is how everything started. One day I came home from school to find my back door wide open.
Oh no.
It was a sliding glass door, and before I left for school, I had secured the bolt to it. I had locked the front door as well. At first I thought maybe someone had broken in, but nothing had been taken and not a single thing was out of place. One of my neighbors came over and looked everywhere with me, but we found nothing strange. At the time I thought it was no big deal. Probably just some curious Japanese kids who thought it would be fun to break in and look at the foreigner's house.
Fun.
That night I was downstairs and I lay down on my futon to go to sleep. And all of a sudden, I heard footsteps upstairs. At first it sounded like someone pacing back and forth between the 2 bedrooms. And then they suddenly stopped. At this point I was lying on my futon, shaking and holding my breath. I was terrified that whoever broke in earlier had managed to hide upstairs in the crawl space. And after about a minute of silence, I heard an incredibly loud bang, as though something huge and heavy had just fallen and hit the floor above me. I ran out of my apartment and I went to my neighbor's house. I convinced my neighbor to come back with me, and we searched upstairs, but we found nothing. This continued to happen every night like clockwork. One night, I was at the local bar with one of the other English teachers. He had been living there for 5 years. I started telling him about the strange things that kept happening every night and how I hadn't been able to sleep because of it. Well, there's a reason for that, he said. Before you, there was another teacher in that apartment. But before her, the apartment was empty. Nobody was living there because a woman hung herself upstairs. They thought the place was cursed.
It is.
So it was empty until the Board of Education decided to rent it out to foreign teachers. At the time, I thought he was just making things up to try to scare me, but one day, I asked my boss about it. He immediately turned white and said the other teachers shouldn't have been telling me things like that. I tried to press him for more information, but he would neither confirm nor deny. One day while cleaning my apartment, I noticed that something was on the underside of the windowsill. Someone had carved the words, "Try to smile," in Japanese about 10 times. When I saw that, I think my blood literally ran cold. I still don't know exactly what happened in that apartment, every night during the summer until I would start sleeping upstairs again. Those same noises would happen without fail.
Jesus.
I grew up in a very small town in Montana, and during the summer, my brother and I would sometimes sell lemonade by the side of the road. We didn't make a lot of money, but we did have fun selling lemonade to people who were passing by. So one hot afternoon, my brother and I were standing at our lemonade stand when we noticed an old rusty car pass us, maybe 2 or 3 times. At the time, it struck me as a little creepy. Eventually, the car slowed down and stopped right in front of the stand. There was a woman in the passenger seat, and as she rolled her window down, I saw that she was really skinny with gray hair that was stained and sickly yellow hue from too much smoking. I couldn't see the man who was driving very well because he never looked at me. He just stared straight ahead. Both of them seemed very odd and their clothes were old and dirty. "You boys out here selling lemonade all by yourselves?"
Obviously.
said the old woman. "Yeah, my mom lets us," I replied. "Is your mom home?"
What? Say some more cluck shit again. I jam this oil down your throat.
She asked. "Yeah, she's in the house," I said. The woman turned and looked at the man who was driving. He nodded, still staring straight ahead. The woman turned back to me and said, "Okay, I'll have a lemonade then." I told her it was 25 cents, and then I poured her a glass. She rummaged around in her purse, and I could hear the coins clinking. Then she pulled out a $5 bill and held it out to me. A chill went down my spine. Why was she handing me a $5 bill if she had coins in her purse? Something just didn't feel right. So I told the lady that I didn't have any change. I lied. "You can keep the change.
Oh.
Just come and take the $5 bill."
Throw it out the window.
Something felt very wrong, but
This one story sounds familiar, but we're gonna go ahead.
$5 is a lot of money to a kid. I walked up to the car and I reached out to take the $5 from her hand. As soon as my fingers touched it, the woman suddenly grabbed me by my wrist and began pulling me into the car. I screamed my lungs out and my brother ran into the house yelling for help. The man floored the accelerator and the car lurched forward. I fought with all my might and managed to wrench myself free from her grasp. The car stopped and the man got out, but I was already running for my life. My brother was pounding on the door screaming. My mother rushed out and I turned just in time to see the rusty old car speeding away. We told my mom what had happened and she called the police. When my brother and I calmed down, we went back to the lemonade stand and there was a $5 bill lying on the ground.
Yup.
We packed up the lemonade stand and put it away for good, never to sell lemonade again. Hell no.
I mean, you could do it again. You could sell lemonade again. He said, hell no. He said, you could do lemonade again. You know what I mean? Just make sure your mom or somebody else is out there with you. You know what I mean? He said, hell no. Yo, that first story with the cremation, I feel like that was an inside job with the uncle and the man in the black suit. That had to be. Because how do you not hear this? And you talking about, I don't hear nothing. You hear something? I don't hear nothing. My ass. That was definitely an inside job. Get the hell out of here. You will never catch me in another country by myself. I promise you that. Especially if I don't know the language like that. Like, I know a little bit of Spanish. Like, I can hold, like, I know some words. Like, I know, hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien, y tú? What's it? El baño, agua. Like, I know a little bit, you feel me? But I'm not going to Japan. I'm not going to, like, I'm not going to Australia. I'm not going to, like, Paris, Egypt, India. Like, I'm not, none of that. Nope. Yeah, all that. All that. And then with the last one, at least they got the $5. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you, stay happy. My family.